huge troubles. Huge, he says.
I think he's talking about those that are leading this nation into the place it's in.
I think he is too.
Yeah, it's really, Dmitry Duduman and Anton Johansson and others, and I think even Red Elk, noted visionary-wise a civil disturbance or a civil war in this country, and we seem to be fast approaching that. And if the so-called sheeple finally get sheared enough, they might recognize the wolf. I don't know.
Well, you know what I'm afraid is going to happen is you're going to have a few people do it, but the rest of them are so materialistic, so used to their handouts, that they're going to resent those that are rising up and rocking the boat, and they'll side with the government. We're going to get rid of these people. They're causing us trouble.
Well, I guess you really would liken that to a civil war, wouldn't you?
Yes, it would be. He says, land and a way to get water is now the need for us all. Start looking, folks. Even team up if you need to. Pooling like compatible-minded sharers, ones who will share labor knowledge and abilities. You will no longer have the luxury of family freeloaders, suckers.
He knows. He's probably been there, you know what I mean?
Oh, yes. You must have givers, not takers. It's harsh, but will need to be decided on. It's a shape up or ship out situation. I
think he's exactly right.
Yeah.
You can only care people that refuse to do anything but use your water, your food, etc., on a daily basis, and they don't give anything into it. You couldn't exist long that way.
Well, it's like the guy that wrote me that I don't like doomsday. He'd be the first to go to a neighbor and steal his food. I guess my reply would be that I would hope the neighbor might decide to resist.
Some will. Everybody, I know that everybody thinks that people are just going to run, take, but, there are some people out there that just liable to hurt you.
Well, you're not a Christian if you won't give everything you've got to me.
I see. I've heard that. I guess I'm not a Christian. How's that? I'm one of those disciples that believes in carrying a sword.
Here's one for you.
Just be sure to cut the ear off at the right time.
Yeah.
And then Jesus might not put it back.
This is kind of ironic. Socialized medicine director dies waiting for operation. It's a bit like a supermarket manager dying of starvation.
Yeah.
Or a bottled water distributor dying of thirst.
Well, that's just basically what Red Elk was talking about. You better get ready to not follow the rules so much anymore.
I know you have to.
It's because the bad guys are making all the rules, Stuart.
That's to make you a criminal.
Exactly. Or non-existent. You either become a criminal or you become non-existent because you followed them.
Yeah. Yeah, they make so many rules that they can arrest you at any time.
You betcha.
For anything.
It's all geared that direction. I mean, it really is.
Well, that's what the non-existent protocols of the elders of Zion had to say about it. We will make so many rules that we can arrest anybody, anytime, anywhere. And evidently, that's, it's amazing to me. We had the non-existent Iron Mountain report. The non-existent silent weapons for silent wars. Now we have the non-existent protocols of the elders of Zion. All of these non-existent reports, or whatever you want to call them, are being fulfilled with 100% accuracy, but they're all lies and they're all fraudulent, and they're not real.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wonder if anybody could explain that. I would like somebody to please explain that.
You're probably not going to have to pick up the phone in the next few minutes with the explanation calling in.
Here's another good headline. Reflections of Delusion. President's re-election announcement. That about says it all, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I tell you what, Stuart. I've been shocked, I guess. Maybe I've just been awakened at how easy it is to delude mankind. It's not hard at all. It's so simple. It's just unbelievable.
It really is. I think that's probably one of the reasons why the Lord said, "My ways are higher than yours," which is really what He's saying.
And that really is not saying all that much.
No.
And people can't grasp that.
No.
You know?
My intelligence is higher than your intelligence. People really are. Well, of course, they've been dumbed down. In a way, you can't blame them. They go to school. They're dumbed down all the way through. They're taught not to think. They're taught not to connect dots. And they are taught to obey authority, no matter what authority tells them to do.
And and I think that's why now, you asked me one time, why in the world would citizens stand by and watch somebody beat somebody out of a wheelchair and still beat them and taser them and then drag them to a police car and haul them off to jail? And why would the citizenry stand by and put up with that? It's because their brain isn't working. There's no electrical spark in there at all.
Yeah, they don't want to get involved.
Not going to get involved.
Here's a very interesting headline that you'd be interested in. Was there a natural nuclear blast on Mars?
Hey, I saw that. I saw the blurb of it. I didn't read it, but
it came out of Fox
that
News.
Is really, really interesting. Because of the fact that we have ancient places on our planet that radioactive too.
Could we say a war between the Creator and Satan?
Well, it was either that or an ancient false flag. And that's kind of putting two parallel worlds together. But
well, this is kind of interesting because there are those who claim that Mars actually was a satellite of a planet that is now the asteroid belt. And if you will, I'm sure you've noticed it, that Mars is peppered with craters on one side and hardly any on the other.
Just one side. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It almost looks like the moon on one side,
Exactly. It says a natural nuclear reaction, let's say maybe not natural, could have occurred on our own planet and could happen again. I would be more inclined to think that maybe a war broke out. You go into the Sanskrit text of old India, they talk about nuclear war.
Oh, yeah, and they even had planes, that dropped these balls of light and stuff that exploded and caused these people to melt in their shoes, more or less.
So you don't suppose...
I think the reason we're getting data like it could be a natural event on either planet is because of a great cover-up that there was wars using nuclear weapons in ancient times.
Yeah.
And we're doing it all over again, so...
Well, the book of Ezekiel talks about how the Lord kind of blew apart His planet.
I think that's very true. Yeah.
And if that were true, then how did He do it? There must have been some sort of a major Star Wars going on.
Well, it's not really all that big a stretch to look at like Phobos or a few places, moons out there that look like a battle star.
They do. They really do. In fact,
and they do claim, I guess if they've got the data, that some of these also are hollow sounding, so to speak.
Yeah, that sounds very bizarre, but the Russians took a picture. They were going towards Phobos in this long, elongated cigar shape, which you have seen and I have seen.
Yeah.
Dr. Peter Bader called them cosmospheres, Russian cosmospheres. And you see a picture taken where you can see it, and then the next thing you know, the probe goes out.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's the last time they ever heard of it. It says the Martian surface is covered with a thin layer of radioactive substances, including uranium, thorium, and radioactive potassium. This pattern radiates from a hot spot. Well, as you know, we found a city there. Others have found stuff that, there was clearly a full, as Art Bell said, civilization on Mars at one time.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen a number of, of course, you called your city Typhonia.
Yep.
And you did the, Project Red Star DVD on it. And, Hoagland's got his location, I guess, and there's a few others got at their locations. And even, you've seen some images that I suppose were NASA or JPL of bases on Mars, from people we can't talk about right now.
Right.
But, people don't understand, the data's out there. It really is. And, when you or I or anybody else talk about things like that on the planet Mars, we're not making any of this stuff up.
I know. They think you are, but you're not.
Yeah, I know it. They do think you are, but you're seriously not. You seriously have seen the evidence with your own eyes,
Yeah, it's there. It's just people don't want to see it.
That's it. Yeah.
Anyway.
And it's just like John Lear told you, when he was trying to help you with Project Red Star, they don't want to talk about it. I mean, they just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was amazed when Art would just avoid it.
Yep. I heard that show that night. And, that's where it's at. There's some data that's just simply, it's what we call non-events or non-subjects, and that is what it is.
Yeah. Ed Dames, when he was on Coast to Coast, was talking about the New Madrid and particularly St. Louis going down. Yeah. Here's an interesting article. James Bond, evidently his new James Bond film foreshadows the New Madrid quake.
Really? Now, I didn't know that. Huh.
In the James Bond film, the evil madman is played by Christopher Walken. His diabolical plot is to pump water directly into a multiple tectonic boundary zone to create what he calls the greatest cataclysm in natural history.
Huh.
And his flunky chimes in, and it's all going to be attributed to natural causes.
Well, of course.
And people don't even believe that.
I know.
Well, what can you do?
It's amazing.
And what else you got? Anything that's even remotely pleasant, or are we in the unpleasant mode today?
We're in the unpleasant mode, just more non-ending bad news. Is that it?
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, there are reports seemingly coming out of certain locations about, this so-called Nephilim.
Yes.
We're receiving some reports. Can't really talk about them much yet. I'll tell you something when we're off air.
Okay.
But, you remember Red Elk, and I know a lot of people don't like us talking about him all that much, but, he actually gave me the 3 locations in the U.S. that these underground entities were going to come up to the surface.
Yes.
And there still is more and more data coming out, just very slowly here, a little there, that this is occurring. It's not real quick, but, it's getting there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, all the things that, people think were nightmares may just come out into the sunlight one day.
Yeah. Say, somebody sent me a headline here. Taiwan land subsidence threatens high-speed rail. They've got pictures. The land is actually sinking.
Now, that's interesting, too, because, Japan, they're saying that's a sinking motion going on over there.
Well, remember the bots. Land sinkings, land risings. Indonesia flooding is no longer freshwater flooding. It's seawater.
Well, that's bad news.
So the sea is beginning to reclaim. I've never...
Well, not only that, Stuart, being salt water, that means that you won't be planting there anymore.
It says Indonesia Medan, M-E-D-A-N, sinking 82 feet. 82 feet.
Wow, that's quite a bit.
Boy. Well, we've warned people. And, of course, you got all these rifts and splits developing all over the place.
Isn't that amazing? I've been watching some of these. And, even down in South America in different locations, they're just having the ground literally splitting apart. I believe Noah's talked about that, didn't she?
Yes, she did. And the noises.
But they are. This is showing up. We're even having places in the U.S. now that they're not reporting much on, but there are places that the ground is just split open, here and there.
Yeah, we've got one up here in Michigan, and it's growing all the time. It's getting bigger.
Wow.
Well, then you got the noises that people are hearing. Have you heard any more about that? I haven't.
I'm getting